Good morning or good evening, and thank you for tuning in to Interview with DJ Nocturna. I'm speaking to multi-instrumentalist, London-based Indietronic artist Rodney Cromwell, the sole electronic project of Adam Cresswell. I'm gonna call you Adam or Rodney, which is
Either's great. I was thinking about this a minute ago. I mean, I'm sure people just call Bono, don't they? But his real name's Paul. But I go by either. I'm flexible.
Yeah. Well, good morning. I should say good evening for you. It's 5 o'clock in London, and it's 7 o'clock more in Honolulu. It's good to reach out to people who are so far away, and you're just like, oh, look at that nice weather there, and we're like, sun is rising here and the sun is setting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you seem it's warm here, but it looks like it's cold there.
No, it's beautiful.
Oh, is that okay?
It's beautiful. I am wearing the hat because somebody said to me they don't recognize me as Rodney Cromwell if I'm not wearing the hat. So I thought I'd try it out. So getting into my persona.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for joining me on this day. I was wanting to ask you, tell us a little bit about the name. Why did you choose Rodney Cromwell?
I just didn't want people at work to know what I get, because obviously I have a day job. This doesn't pay the bills. And I didn't want them to know what I was getting up to in my spare time. But then, eventually you just end up having to invite them to your gigs anyway and stuff. So it's like, or my boss found out the other day that I'm in a band and making music and I'm playing with Flock of Seagulls. And he's like, well, why didn't you invite me? I love Flock of Seagulls. So, yeah, I mean, why, I should, I prefer, it's a persona, as I say, it's a persona, Rodney Cromwell. It's an extension of myself. It's not exactly me. It's a little bit more wacky.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Flock of Seagulls. I just did an interview with the original drummer, the brother of Mike Score, Ali Score.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Yeah, he collaborated with Jen Vix, and they have a song out. So yeah, he was on the show just yeah, I think it's a few days ago.
Very cool.
So it's gonna air soon, but yeah. So yeah, well, I guess we're all connected somehow, right? Somehow everybody's connected. Yeah, and and your music is electronic based, and I know you've been in other previous bands, Saloon.
Yep.
And Arthur and Martha.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Saloon was a few years back now. We were a sort of Indietronica. We had like viola player, guitars, softly sung vocals, but we had two massive great Moogs at the front of the stage. So we combined all the kind of like acoustic stuff with the synthetic stuff. I really loved the synth stuff. I was the bass player, but I moved much more onto the sort of synth stuff. And so when that band kind of like split up and went our own ways, fairly harmoniously, I went to the next project I went on to was Arthur and Martha, which is kind of a proper full electronic thing. I mean, basically we didn't want to have a drummer anymore. They're so we didn't want to have a big van for the staff. We just wanted to be able to just get in the back of a car or get on the bus and go and play a gig really and be a bit more flexible. So yeah, we did this kind of like two-piece thing called Arthur and Martha, and it was a lot of fun.
So you're Arthur, and then and then there's Martha, and then so are you guys? I mean, that was the last band that you collaborated with, right? I mean,
I'm still very close to Martha. Her real name is Alice. She records under the name of Alice Hubble. So she's put a couple of records out on my record label as well in the last couple of years. Done very well. So yeah, we still play together and stuff now and then. I mean, she did a thing with Damo Suzuki of Cannes. He does a sort of thing where he goes from town to town and he puts together a backing band, and she was asked to put together the backing band, and I played alongside Alice with that. It was a lot of fun. That was just before the pandemic started, so that was the last show we played before everything went a bit crazy.
And the record label you're probably talking about is Happy Robot Records.
Yeah, that's right, Happy Robots. Yeah, that's my label. Yeah.
So now with Rodney Cromwell, this is a solo. This is just you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is just you. How does it feel like doing this, being on your own and doing this on your own? I mean, is it more work to do compared to having a band?
It's the same but different, really. Yeah, of course it is a lot more work. But I mean, with all the previous, well, certainly with Saloon, there was 5 of us, but I was managing the band. So managing people is a big part of the job anyway. So you take people out the equation and it's a lot easier. It just sort of really happened, really. I wrote the first album and the plan was kind of for it to be the second Arthur and Martha album. But Alice, Martha, she just felt it was a bit too personal to me, basically because I'd written most, all of it. So I decided to just do it as a solo thing, and yeah, it works really easily. I have a band when I play live. I have 2 other people that come in.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, but I keep it flexible. So I didn't, when I get a nice gig offer, it's a shame to have to turn it down because your drummer can't do it or somebody can't do it. So I can play as a 1-piece. I can play with a 2-piece or a 3-piece. And I've had various people coming and going in the band. Like Alice has played for a bit. My friend Richard, my friend Martin play in the band at the moment. So it's kind of flexible. And if one of them can't do it, somebody else will come in. It's because let's be honest, they're not the most difficult songs to learn. Yeah.
So Oliver Cromwell started. I know your debut LP was released in 2015 called "The Age of Anxiety." That was the first one, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I know you just released Memory Box. Was it last week?
Yeah.
Last week, yeah. So tell us a little bit about Age of Anxiety, the title. And
yeah, I mean that came from a kind of a difficult time in my life, really. I was suffering from anxiety, depression myself, and actually that writing the music was a form of therapy, and certainly getting out there and playing again in front of people really helped me dealing with my anxiety. And I've essentially exposure therapy. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm 100% cured. I still get nervous, even doing this I got a little bit of butterflies in my chest, but I'm certainly, it's not as debilitating as it used to be. And it was really inspiring actually when I made that record. Lots of people who suffer from anxiety themselves were like, I can really relate to some of the things that you've sung on this, and I don't know if it helped them, but certainly they didn't feel so alone that somebody else was actually dealing with this.
I mean, they always say music is therapy. I mean, it really is. Yeah. I mean, you can listen to music when you wake up and before you go to bed, and in your dream state, it's still playing.
Yeah, there's always music going through my head. Sometimes you want to get rid of it, but but it's always there.
What are some of your your influences musically?
Well, the first band I was really into was New Order.
Oh yeah.
And, you can certainly hear that on not
I
quite as much on Memory Box, but certainly on Age of Anxiety. I got to a point in my career, if you want to call it that, where I was just a lot more comfortable with recognizing my influences and stuff and not being ashamed to kind of wear them on my shoulder. So yeah, definitely that New Order, Kraftwerk. But I listen to you see I've got quite a big record collection behind me. I listen to all sorts of things. Another artist I'm really into is a French artist. Well, he's not French, that's a lie. Belgium artist called Stromae. And he's massive over in Europe, like a big pop artist. But he also deals with things in his songs as well, like dealing with anxiety, depression, loss, and as well as really joyful things as well. So yeah, so a whole mix of things really came into the melting pot. Just years of listening to music.
Yeah. I did some interviews with New Order actually back in a few years ago. Peter Hook was I interviewed Peter Hook. Wow. And Tom Chapman and Phil Cunningham, who's in the newer, they're new members of the band.
Yeah.
Shadow Party. Yeah, they came to Honolulu some time ago. I think they play here. Yeah, they played like I don't know how many years ago that was. Maybe 6-7 years ago.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, they're truly one of my favorite bands as well. I love New Order, and we talked when I talked to Peter Hook, we talked about the Hacienda and just Manchester, basically. Yeah, it was a good interview. Yeah.
I love Manchester. I'm going up there tomorrow to play a gig. It's it's one of my favorite places to play. It's just lovely people up there, and as long as it's not raining. It's rained many times when I've been up there, and it snowed. I think finally going to have beautiful weather tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that.
So how did it all started out with electronic music? You know, some people they play different types of music, different types of instrument. But for you, I know it's electronic based, and I also read somewhere that you like vintage equipment.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
all my gear is vintage. I don't
Well,
have anything more recent, well, other than the sort of keyboards that I used to, on the computer. But everything really is really. I mean, like, my most recent key synthesizer is 15 years old now, 16, the Microkorg, which I still think is my new synth, but it's not new at all. Yeah, I've got an ARP synthesizer. I've got two Moogs. I've got a Korg MS-10. I just love the sound. I love the kind of visceral feeling of it, twisting knobs, and it's not
oh,
about programming. It's not about sitting in front of the computer and doing things on the computer. It's just in
okay.
front of you.
I was
Yeah,
gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you, how do you? What is vintage? For the people who may not understand what that means. What is? How is that different
but it's
from?
not digital. It's not digital, essentially.
Oh yeah, it's
Any
analog.
synth that's not
Okay.
digital. It's really about the filters inside it and how the electronics work in there. Yeah,
The other ones are little things that you kind of put that in, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
What really turned me onto it was I was at the we call it the tip. I don't know what you would call it. The Where you take your trash, basically, a kind of like communal area to take your trash.
mm-hmm.
And before we had recycling centers now. Before that, and I was in the queue, and there was this old couple, and they got this big stack of records, and they just lowered it in there. And I was next to the queue, and I pulled them out. I had them, took them home, and lots of the records in there were kind of like these old sort of exotica stuff,
Oh
you know,
wow.
sort of
Really?
tea
They threw
stuff.
that away? Oh my god.
Yeah, but exactly. I mean, this was 25 years, 20 years ago, something like that. But there was loads of like Moog albums in there and stuff, and big band stuff, James Last and stuff. And I loved it. I was really attracted to the Moog stuff. And then one day my mum phoned me up and she's like, "Oh, I was in a music shop and they got a Moog synthesizer on the wall." So I drove over there and I was bought my first Moog, and after that it was changed my life really. Still talking about it now.
Yeah, no, I also read somewhere that you did some pure sessions with Saloon way back. Well, that must be those recordings are priceless actually. You know,
Yeah, that was before. I mean, we did it just a few years before John passed away.
yeah.
Right at the end of his life, sadly, and his career. Yeah, we did 3 sessions. We did 2 studio sessions and 1 live session. So we got to meet John as well at the live one. Yeah, though, I mean, you can't take those away. I mean, that was an amazing experience. Some of the best
I
experiences of
know,
my
very
life.
much so.
Yeah.
So, how do you get inspired to write a new song? I mean, I know I always want to ask that because that's always something that some people get. Some people experience things and they write things, or some people just was riding on the train and then they feel, oh, I'm gonna put this song together. And
It totally varies. I mean, with this album, I knew I wanted to write an album in a year. 2020, I was already planning before the pandemic hit. My plan was always to write my new album that year. And yeah, sometimes it's just a word, 2 words, or whatever. I'll write them on my phone and then come back to them a week later. So I'll try writing around that word almost. And most of the time, or other times, it's just sit in front of the synthesizer, hit it a few times, and see what happens. Really, I'm not. I mean, I'm. I suppose the reason I like New Order so much is I know they're from that kind of punk rock tradition where they're not particularly
yeah.
musically trained, and I'm not either. To be honest, I had 1 recorder lesson. That's all I ever had, and then my teacher actually kicked me off, and I never was allowed back.
So it's all like self-taught kind of.
Yeah, entirely. Yeah,
Wow.
entirely self-taught. So
So
you
it is
just
possible. It is
yeah.
possible.
So it's just, I mean, music writing for me, it's just happy accidents. I don't have like a big studio set up, all that sort of stuff. It's just the gear, really. I've got a very old computer I record on. I don't have fancy DAW, like they call them, Logic and all that sort of stuff. I got Roman Angelos, Richard Bennett in New York to mix the albums. I didn't do the mixing myself, but in terms of the actual recording, yeah, it's just literally thumping on some gear and hope something sticks together, really.
Wow, that's great. Have you thought about doing anything with film?
Well, wouldn't we all like to do that? I mean, it's hours in the day. There's so many things I'd love to do. We did a brilliant thing with Saloon where we went to the ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Arts, just right, down the road from Buckingham Palace, and it's a terrific arts thing there. And we did a soundtrack to the film Le Jetée, which is a French film which 12 Monkeys is based on. And that was a terrific experience to do. It was only 25 minutes long, but we did the soundtrack entirely live. No computers or anything, just the 5 of us. And that was, alongside the Peel sessions, that was another career high for me.
So do you like disco by any chance? I mean, electronic, disco has been, this foundation of dance music.
I used to listen to a lot of disco.
Yeah.
A lot less so now, I'll be honest. But I used to back in the day. I used to, do DJing myself, and there'd be a hell of a lot of like old 70s records in there. Like things like, Car Wash and Chic and all that sort of stuff. But there are so many people that do that sort of stuff much better than I do. And always, who wouldn't? I'd love to be able to play the kind of Nile Rodgers type guitar. I often say that to my guitar player, just do a Nile Rodgers. Like that's really easy, Yeah, but I mean, who doesn't love a bit of disco?
So you must like Brian Eno and Chris and Cozy and all those guys, those pioneers.
I'm not. I do know some of the stuff. There's Chris and Cozy stuff a little bit, but I'm not I wouldn't ever profess to be an expert in anything.
Yeah. Well, I really like your latest LP called Memory Box that came out last week on your label Happy Robot Records. And how many tracks were in there? I think there were like how many?
12.
12, yeah. Yeah, then that one came out, and if somebody wanted to find out more about that, they can go to, I know you have some they're in Bandcamp and also on the label.
You go to happyrobots.co.uk, which is my website. It's on Bandcamp, and it is distributed in shops as well. So it's on Amazon and all those sort of places, and in real record shops as well. So it is pretty much most places.
A lot of good tracks there. Can you tell us about that? Like, what was the inspiration behind that particular LP? Memory Box.
Yeah, I mean, originally I was going to do something more kind of dark and gothic-y, I suppose. And the first couple of tracks I wrote were a bit darker. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, I don't want to write dark music anymore.
And so it all out of this thing.
and it all got a bit. And I caught COVID as well while writing it, and I very much didn't want to write one of these kind of lockdown albums that are all kind of new age and reflective. I wanted to write an album for when you get out, when this is all over, that we can enjoy, really. And it's certainly the experience of having COVID made it a little bit more. I got quite bad brain fog, and it just made it a little bit more psychedelic, dare I say it. Without the use of drugs, it just went in that direction, really. I think it became a much better record for it. I'm really glad I changed the direction of it. Well, I think once I wrote the song Memory Box, which was just to be about me not being able to remember things properly, and it literally came from that. And then, and then after that, actually, it just became something more, as I say, more psychedelic, a little bit more interesting, I thought, than just a sort of straight, dark synth wave album, which was the way it was going to go otherwise.
Because I know you released some that was the first track or something back last year of Memory Box. There were remixes also. Yeah. And then,
yeah. So Mood Tag did one, and they are on my label as well. And there's another guy who did a sort of more dance one. AUW, his name is. That's my brother, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was a bit like, Dom. That's the name of my brother. I was like, Dom, can you do me a remix like sharpish, because I forgot to sort this out. And he knocked one up really quickly for me. Yeah, he's good.
So,
he's a synthwave act.
Yeah. So all the tracks from this album were mixed and co-produced by Richard Bennett, and mastered by Pete Maher, who did other works, including U2, and who worked with Goldfrapp and Paul Weller. I was like, wow, cool, and the Pixies.
Yeah, some really big names. He's great. He's he's happy to master not just the big names, but smaller artists as well. And there's a lot of people that are like, no, I don't need to do you anymore. I'm too busy doing Bono or whatever. But no, yeah, yeah, he's a good guy.
Is there anybody in the future you would like to collaborate with if you could?
I don't know. Is Lady Gaga busy? I don't know.
Have you seen her latest Gucci?
I haven't. No, I haven't. I've seen the adverts. Yeah, I have. I was going to see her live, but she had backache or something, and she pulled out.
House of Gucci. Yeah, it's actually a really good movie. I watched it on the plane.
Oh, the Gucci film. Yeah, of course. No, I haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting for it to come on the telly here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching on the plane on my way to San Francisco. I missed it completely, and I actually liked it. It kept the long flight, busy. So,
yeah, but I mean, in terms of collaboration, I just not, yeah, if somebody came along, that'd be great. But otherwise, I'll just keep doing what I do on my lonesome if need be. I've worked with people I really like Richard Bennett, so, which is a great thing. I don't want to work with anyone I don't really get on with anymore. I mean, that's part of the beautiful thing about being in a solo project. You don't have to work with people that.
Yeah, and you have all the instruments you have, and so are you? Will you be doing anything coming up? Anything coming up in the future?
A lot of shows if I can get them. Obviously, I'm playing with Flock of Seagulls next week, but that's sold out. I'm playing Manchester tomorrow. I'm doing a few other London shows, hoping to get to Europe again. I was supposed to go a few weeks ago to Dusseldorf, but because of the pandemic, I got pulled. Have to go to Paris. These are at the very least. And then, yeah, I'll probably take another single off the album. And then I've got another song as well, which I wrote at the same time, which is a little bit too silly for the album, a bit too light-hearted. And that's called Exercise Class. So I might do that as a standalone.
Exercise Class. Is that part of the songs that was released on the album, or a new one?
No, it's not. I wrote it at the same time.
Oh.
But it didn't quite sit on the album. It's a little bit too lightweight. It's a sort of pumping workout song. It's very disco-y, 80s-y kind of like disco thing. And it's got me doing a sort of spoken word vocal on it. It's quite of the moment, but it didn't really sit on the record. It was between that or Wristwatch Television. And Wristwatch Television was the one I felt fitted better on the album. So yeah, I might do that soon. That was one of those songs where I literally wrote down on my phone, write a song called Exercise Class. And then eventually I'm like, okay, let's just get on with it and do it then. And 2 words and it's.
Yeah. So tomorrow, actually, you're going to Manchester. Is that the one? Tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's tomorrow for you guys, right? In a few hours.
Yeah. One more sleep.
One more sleep to go. And then next week is the Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah, that's right.
Flock of Seagulls. Oh, okay. How exciting.
Yeah, it's a busy time, to be honest. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so I know you have some information here. I mean, if people want to check it out, it's happyrobots.com.
.uk.
Yeah. .co.uk.
Yeah.
Okay. And then /Rodney-Cromwell. And then you also have your Bandcamp page, Rodney Cromwell, and on Bandcamp. And then, of course, you're on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff.
All that stuff. I've not quite worked onto TikTok yet. Who knows, eh?
I know, yeah. So I know one of your inspiration too is Alice in Wonderland. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, I love that book. Yeah, yeah. There's that kind of sort of surreal.
Mushroom.
Yeah, mushrooms. It's the otherworldly side of it that I like. Yeah, that was definitely an influence. Yeah. That's just kind of like the blurred reality. And it was certainly when I was writing Memory Box, the song, that was definitely, I felt at the time, oh, this has got a kind of like Alice in Wonderland vibe. So I went off and reread it again for like, I don't know, 4th, 5th time or whatever. And then, yeah, I just kind of incorporated some of that otherworldliness into it. That and Franz Kafka as well. So there's a lot of notions around kind of like bureaucracy, that sort of thing as well. The sort of, so there's a song in there called The Small Print. There's one called The Butterflies in the Filing Cabinet. So yeah, there's a kind of mix of like otherworldliness and then absolute mundaneness, really. Yeah, I'm trying to make the mundane into something otherworldly, I suppose.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great music, you know, and I really enjoy listening to it. It's you know, it's different. Like music is just beautiful in every way. I mean, you get exposed to these different artists, and you begin to appreciate it even more, you know. And
Thank you.
yeah, so you know, thank you for coming on the show. Anything else we need to talk about that's coming up for you? I know
Oh,
you got live, and then we'll wait for the next album.
yeah, it might take a while. I like to, in the early part of my career, I'd put out an album and then split up the band. Certainly that happened with Aftermath, and certainly with the second Saloon album. So certainly my thing these days is I put out an album and then I will flog it to death. So I'll still be talking about it in at least a year's time, I can assure you. You know, I just want to make sure people get to hear it. And actually, some of these, you know, it doesn't happen. I think it's really important. The promo side of it is what's the point of making it if no one's going to hear it?
So will you be working with Arthur and Martha again?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't think Alice is that interested, but maybe. I mean, I've always said to her I would never count it out.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to the next one, and you know, congratulations on this new LP. It is out now. It just was released last week, and perfect timing actually. Memory Box. You can find that on your label, Happy Robots
Yeah.
Records, and then of course if you go to the website happyrobots.co.uk/Rodney-Cromwell, you can find that as well.
Yeah, great. And it should be on Spotify and all those things as well, if you're that way inclined.
Yeah, my great music, and it's a pleasure to talk to you in this early morning, and it really made my day. Now I can go to something more, you know, go to my
Yeah, absolutely. I've got it's tea time here, so I have to go and feed my family.
oh tea time. Yeah, I just had my coffee, but yeah, thank you, thank you
Brilliant.
very much. Let me shut this off.
Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant.
Yeah.